Good evening, Wendy. Derek, good evening to you. Sean, good evening to you from Cornwall. Nice of you to join us. No surfing waves tonight, my man. Rather that of a nice tiger's eye. Ah, lovely. Right, we've got 7 in. Hopefully pencils might draw a few more in. I don't know. I've been looking forward to this. Well, I hope so. Good. That'll be fantastic. Had a few teeth in trouble. But I think we've actually... Well, I've messed around with the layout in here. And hopefully made it a bit easier and a bit easier for me to do. And I can also lean up just above my head here where the camera now is. And I can come in and hopefully I can pull in to bits and pieces if I want to show you something a little bit more to the point. Good evening, Glennis. Yeah, thanks, Sean. Appreciate that. Just give it a little bit longer for people to come on and come involved. Let's see where the chat's gone on that side. No. Okay. I don't know what's going on with it. Okay, not a problem. Hi everyone. Hi John, good evening to you, sir. Have I finished the studio now? Well, it's morphing all the time. I've got a sort of what they call a tension arm that takes the camera out from a shelf. Now, I did have it and I would like it on a bar, which is a little bit more sturdy. But I need to figure out how to put that bar into place just above my head here. At the moment, I've got this thing here that cost £11 and I've got sort of 700, 800, 900 pounds worth of camera sitting on it. And it's a little bit worrying, but it's held out for several hours of filming earlier today and yesterday. And yeah. Let's hope it should do the job. I'm just being a bit silly. I hope it works anyway. Enjoy your video. Looks like the layout is going to take forever if you keep ripping it all up again. Yeah, you're right, John. But I sort of showed it to Paul and then I showed it to Tim. And Tim's comments, well, I think I reiterated them in the video that, you know, he said you used an airbrush, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. And he said, nah. And it all stemmed from that comment, really. And the more I looked at it, the more I could see what was being said, that it was nothing wrong with airbrushing as a technique to do the track work, nothing at all with that. But it was a case that you looked at it, it was sort of very generic, very even, and that's the problem with an airbrush. It's a very even. That's even when you do a locomotive, you get a very even spray, and by then adding powders, can you change it? But it was just too even on the track to even powders wouldn't have done the job properly. But anyway, so I made that decision to pull it up, start again. Hopefully I can use some of the old track somewhere else. It's a little bit daggy, but it will work for sidings. And there was only one minor casualty with a point, and hopefully I can... It was just the end part came out of one of the chairs, so I'm sure I can get that sorted out and working. Wendy getting there a bit like a frog in a chimney at the moment. Okay, that's not so good, John. I hope you are getting there, mate. Sean saw you mixing green. Should all wow, didn't know there were so many. You can have a lot of fun with it. Sylvia, good evening to you too. Ben, good evening to you, sir. I suppose we're now 14 up and it is gone the hour, so best I start doing some work. Okay, right, so I hope you can see this new setup. Behind me I've got a different backdrop, and hopefully that will be a little better. We're going to light it a little bit differently later on, but at the moment we are stuck with what we've got. And I'm a little bit tired, I've got to say. I've been at painting and drawing all day long, and I'll explain more of that in a moment. And so yeah, and the lights here are a bit different. The camera is just above my head, and so what I can do is I can zoom out and zoom in and give you a much better look of what is going on. Let me just bring that back without making you all very seasick. I don't want to do that. Terracotta being salvageable, you could paint over it and make from where you're a pro artist. Yeah, I could probably have done, but what's done's done. Lesson learned, and I sort of move on from that. Okay, coloured pencils. Now then, that's not a coloured pencil. All right, Luke, good evening to you. Sorry, won't be able to stay tonight because you've got scouts. Not a problem. That's a very, very good. I used to be a scout years ago and a cub, and loved every bit of it. So make the most of it, because you're not young that long. You can keep enjoying it. Excuse me, something in my throat. A drink. Hopefully that's gone. Right. Yeah, we hope so. Okay, so the colours that I'm using are from the box set of 120 or 140. There's quite a few in there. And so I will give you colours, and if you are following this to do something like this at home, the pencils that I'm using are Faber-Castell Polychromos. They are a sort of oily, more than waxy pencil. They're a little bit harder, and therefore they can give you some greater detail without the end shearing. Some of the softer ones, such as the Prismacolor, which are a cheaper one, or the more expensive Caran d'Ache Luminescence, are somewhat softer, waxier, and they're great for blending, not so great for detail. So you just got to which ones you're going to use and what have you. Now, another quick tip which I will come across and talk to you about is that when it comes to sharpening, I'm using one of these, which is a swordfish. They're only cheap, about 12 quid, and it does a really nice job of sharpening your pencils to a very, very fine point. It's got to be said. This black is just gone off the edge of sharp, but you can see how nice a taper that can give to it. But the thing about that is that you don't want to keep putting it in there and taking down your pencil through the wood, because obviously it's going to be expensive. So when you do start losing a point, there's nothing stopping you taking a little bit of soft sandpaper and rolling the pencil. Let me do it on camera, then you'll be very helpful to you. And rolling it like that and just tapering up the point again so that you get a lovely sharp point, but you're not destroying tons and tons of wood in the process, and therefore shortening the life of your pencil. These things really are not cheap. I've got to remember where this camera is pointing. These things are really not cheap, and so therefore it's worth taking a little bit of note that you don't need to put in all that sharpening. Now there's something else. What we're working on tonight is a white board, which is a pastel matte board. They can do no end of boards for coloured pencil, but the two that I'm using are the hot press watercolour paper from it's one of those ones. It's Fabriano Artistico hot press. Extra white, lovely paper. Buy it in a block. It's not cheap, but it makes some lovely pictures. And also the pastel mat, which you can buy in a variety of different colours. Now what I want to just show you is a little tale of woe. Wait for it, John. There's another tale of woe coming up. This was going to be a film that I did for you guys this week. So a little bit of a funny angle. There we are. That I spent 3.5 hours on yesterday from start to finish, drawing all the way through to the final mark with the pencils. And silly me, I didn't check my camera settings, and instead of shooting at about 100 to 200 ISO, maybe about 125, something like that, I was up in 3200. So all I got was a very blown out picture, totally unusable. So unfortunately that will go up for sale, but there is no footage. It would have made a great Patreon tutorial and a speeded up one for YouTube. So hey ho, there you go. All right, now just another little piece of information. Polychromos are pretty much smear proof. They don't rub or move when you put them onto a paper like the Fabriano, but when you put them on pastel mat, they're not as stable. They're not as bad as charcoal, but they're not as stable as if they were put onto the paper. There's the little sort of grittiness in this surface is not going to hold them as the paper would. So just bear that in mind. All right, I'm going to come back to this sheet in a minute, in a little while. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly sketch with a mechanical pencil. This has got a 2B lead in it, I think. I'm just going to go in and sketch very carefully my sort of eye generally, like so. And it's going to take me a few minutes just to get this where I want it to be. So bear with me and chat amongst yourselves. That will be fine. Just going to look at the nice globe on the roundness of the eye, and it is a nice ball. You can start with a lovely ball shape like this, okay, and then you can start to shape the eye out as it may well be, because although you've got this white here, then you've got the lovely area here that leads into the tear duct around there. And there's you'll notice on this photo, and I'm just going to pull it up for myself a little bit closer, but you'll notice that there is a lot of glistening in the tear duct itself. It looks like a bit of a watery slick, and you'd be right in that it is, because what it is this particular tiger hasn't been awake very long, if I remember correctly, when I took the shot. And as it was sort of walking around, seeing what I was up to, checking me out, but it hadn't been awake too long. And so what was the case was that is sort of wet sleep in its eye that hadn't dried out yet, and so it's literally running down from the tear duct. Much the same as we would wake up with sleep in our eyes. So yeah, anyway, there is a nice cast shadow right the way halfway through the eye. Very sunny day, as you can see, and that is giving us this nice dark cast shadow because his brow is a lot way over. You can pull it forward and put it way over his eye as such. Now I'm going to use a piece of paper just as a rest. There we go. So I don't put all my all my oils from my skin onto the paper, onto the thing at all. I'd rather not do that. So I'm going to let that come through. It's a little shape under there, and that will come down under like so. That gives us the two areas, the dark and the light in the middle. And I'm just going to bring this up. I'm checking everything all the time. I'm evaluating exactly what I'm seeing. It does appear to come to a point there. It's not. It's the coloration that's making you feel that. There is, after all, if you took this eye out, not that you would, But if you were to take the eye out, it is a ball. No different to yours or mine. It is a ball shape, and it sits within the socket of skin and muscle that hold it in place. And everything else that we see around it is what creates the shape of the eyes. A little bit of light comes around there, and we've got the there's darker recess and a lighter recess. I've got to give that enough room to work, and that could actually come down a little bit there, a little bit square, and that give me that shape. Now the degree of dark that you see around will change as to the way the tiger is looking, or any cat is looking, come to that matter. It really doesn't make a lot of odds. It's going to look, and it's going to pull its eye into certain areas, and it will change the way that you see it. So we've got a little bit of dark coming down through here, which I'm just indicating with little taps, and there's, oh actually I've completely forgotten one area at all. So let's take that out, and let's just come back in very carefully. I'm going to shorten that dark to about there and take that line out from there. The putty eraser is ideal for this purpose. Let's put a nice white eye stripe through here that will come down somewhere like that. And we've got this nice shape here of the fur coming around to meet just below the tear duct about there, and it tucks in and comes out again, giving us that sort of shape, something of that nature. And then we've got eye stripes above, which I will put a couple in just to see how far we go. They emanate from this area here, so the first one will come over and it will extend, come down and extend beyond the line of the eye, or the back of the eye, and it will then go on up like so. Now I will put the reference to this particular tiger. This is a male tiger from the Smarden area. That there is a cat survival sanctuary over at Smarden, and that's where this tiger lives. And if you ever go there, you can see this particular cat, and it's a magnificent male, and yeah, it's there to see and enjoy. And I know I think they still have certain public days each year. Now we're going to have a much darker mark through here, which I'm just going to suggest with a little outline, and then we come off with the rear of the eye, and the light or the white hair comes down, comes back in a bit there, and I can change any of this before I really commit to the pencils. And it's a bit of a stronger mark there than I've allowed, but that may come down. I'm just checking levels through there. It's about the same height as the top of the pupil, so I'm just checking my shapes. And what I will do is, before I commit with pencils, I will certainly rub or erase many of these dark pencil marks out before I continue. That's just giving me an idea, an overall look. Now let's just check on the yes, you're right, John, I did get a nice image out, and that's what people have said. My son said the same, apart from don't cry over it, Dad. Very sympathetic, my son. Yeah, it's true enough. I got a nice image out of it, and it will go, and I'm really happy about that. It just could have been so much more. Okay, right, so let's come out with there. Let's leave that. We got that about right. We can add to any of this drawing further on down the road. I'm just going to check in the this is sort of over. We've got that part of our eye here, this cheekbone. Well, their cheekbone is about here, and below it, just over, if you can imagine that you come out, if you look at that fur, it's in shadow to about there, and then it hits a bit of light as it comes over here, and then you've got this dark mark, which is one of the first major stripes. And I'm just going to suggest it like that for the moment. And then there is it comes down, it come up and comes down a bit like that. There's another part of something there. But what it is this area here is where the skin and fur is rolling over the cheekbone. And so you've got a flattening out here and a bit less light hitting those hairs. And then as it rolls over the bone, then they start catching the light again. And that's really where this part is all about. I think that actually could be a little bigger. And I'm just looking at this area here. There is a dark mark under here. And coming across, and that comes and finishes down there somewhere. It just doesn't actually finish. It gives way to lighter hair. Right, I think we've done enough at the moment. And I really am going to start with the eye and the eyeball itself. And it will depend on how long it takes, whether we go further into this or just get around the eye. So what I will do, if it's okay, and tell me if this is working for you guys, I'm just going to come in, move this over just ever so slightly, and so that you can see closely what I'm working on. Does that work? I hope it does. And let me know if it doesn't, please. Judy, nice of you to join us. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you're here. What I'm going to do before I go into any of it, I'm just going to tap off with the eraser, the putty eraser, and just get rid of the majority of the pencil marks. It doesn't mind being drawn over, but it just gets rid of heavy dark lines that you don't really want to show through your lovely colour pencils. So I'm just erasing as much of it as I can. It won't all go, but I have found that this 2B pencil, actually the lead gives away from the surface a lot easier than other leads. I'm not going to go any further than that for the moment. Just going to take it down to where I feel comfortable leaving it, so I can see the rest of it and then come back into it later on. Okay, first off and foremost, let's use some black, trusty old black. Let's just line out the eye to begin with. Let's come back in and we are going to now get on with our colour, like so, and line out the eye. Okay, it appears to be pointy out there, and to point, excuse the pun, it really is, but it's not. It's only where the skin is closing over the ball itself. No different to the fact that ours eyes change. Whatever nationality you are, it's the skin around the eye that dictates it, like Oriental eyes, but they still have a ball for an eye. And it's just the skin that goes around that ball that determines the shape of the eye. And it's no different to this fella. Now what I'm going to come in and do is come in with a soft blue. Now I can try and read these off to you. They're not great to see under these lights, to be honest with you. And this one is no different. It's very difficult. I think it's a... Well, it might be easier just to give you a number, which is 120. There you go, 120. Take all night at this rate. What I'm going to do is just do a soft, subtle colour of blue over the eye socket itself. Now that will give me a lovely soft blue to what will become the light. I'm just coming over that with a softer, paler blue, and that will give me a thicker contrast between the two. This one is a number, good heavens, 146. So if you're writing these numbers down, you can get a correlation from those numbers if you go onto their website, I'm sure. Alright, I'm going to leave that to there, put the pencil back, and I'm going to come in for a nice, get some colours out of the way, just going to put a nice reddish colour in to begin with before I put the black in. and this one is 169. And let's just come into this area over the blue. Just a very, very soft light mark over the blue to there. A little bit at the top. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with that black. Now the eye pupil here, it reflects what it sees in front. So this cat, if I could blow it up, is actually looking directly at me. And if you could have a high enough degree of information in there, in that piece of photograph, if I was dead sharp when I took it on the eye itself, which is what all photography, when you're doing wildlife, you aim to do, it would show a picture of me in his. In fact, if I've blown mine up, and there is this little shape here, which I think would quite possibly be me looking at it as I'm taking the photograph, looking at it looking at me. I think that's a picture of me in his eyes. Other couple of shapes here, and there we go. Now that's just the start of the whole process. What I'm going to do now is come in with some base colours, and you layer up. You go from one successive colour layering up to the next. I'll put in a little bit where are we? Can't even see that one. The colour's almost the same. I believe it's 180. Yes, 180. If I get it right, I just get about the colour there where it should be. Okay, I'm just going to come in with a very, very soft colour, which is going to be my first suggestion of lights and darks. I've got a nice piece of light here, which I want to try and preserve that. And I've got a light bit of blue here. So I'm going to just come down between the two areas, preserving that nice piece of white. And there's a little bit of a dusty shade of light beyond that as well. Need to save them both. And I'm just going to come in there and just take that down very, very gently. And I've got to be careful how far you come down with this. Now I can see that this browny colour is actually picking up some of that black. And it's the pastel matte that's doing it. If I was doing this on the watercolor paper, it wouldn't be having the same effect. Now I'm going to come across in a different angle, and that will help take out any degree of pattern in the paper itself. Don't forget to leave that nice piece of white, and the darker we make things around it, the more white that will become. Now I'm going to warm that up a bit more now before I start cooling it down at the top end. This colour is Indium Red, and I couldn't see the number, but I do know the colour. I'm just going to come over again and layer up. Now I've got to say to everybody that I appreciate what we're doing. It's looking directly at you because you made a lovely accompaniment with a few chips. Cheers, John. Yes, white pastel matte. Jim, good evening to you, sir. Seeing if I've missed anybody. Good. Okay, at least you can see what I'm working on and the detail that I'm working in, which is good. That's what it's about. So I just want to come over, and that dark there, that dark on the top here, has to have dark around it, because of course if it was light around it, you'd be getting a suggestion of light glare in the eye. And if you look here, you've got the eye spot, or where the light is entering the eye, it travels through, and then the light area down here is where the light is coming out. And that's the same with anything. If you're doing any eye, human or otherwise, where the light spot is, where the highlight catch light is on the eye, look to the opposite side, and right down at the base you'll see a very much lighter area where the light is coming out from. It's sort of passing through the lens, as it were. So that's always worth working that out if you are doing any eye, really, any eye at all. So I'm going to come in with a very pale lemony yellow colour. I hope I'm making these choices up as I go along. This is called 102 Cream, but for that I am just going to come in with a very subtle shade, very generic, very much just over the top of everything. A lovely, lovely colour. Taking that all the way up to there and around there like so. It's very, very pale as you can see, but it is making its presence felt. I'm going to come in a little stronger with it. And we will change the colour and put other colours in too. This will give me my light in the eye, certainly to start with. Alright, now I'm going to leave it at that for the second. I want to put in just a slightly yellowy yellow. And this one is Naples yellow, believe it or not, 165. And I'm just going to come in and look at some of the shapes. Just going to generally add in a bit of depth around the base area. Just slowly does it. Lots of little marks in the eye that just to make these things amazing. That little dark spot in the middle there, that is actually the shadow from where the eye, where the light, if I can point down to it, that would be easy, wouldn't it? Where the light enters here is creating a shadow on the back of the eye there. And that's what you're seeing. I think that's what you're seeing. I stand to be corrected, but I think that's correct in what I'm saying. I'm going to add in a little bit more depth of yellow around here to start with, just to warm up that nice shape. There. And I'm pushing quite hard at that point. I'm just suggesting some little bit of depth in here, just warming up the eye generally, and little straight line marks, as you can see, as we come into different areas. And just taking that there, just running some of that through so that you get a little bit of this going into that dark area, and just a little bit coming into that area as well. Not too much because it's going to get quite cool, so I'm not too overly worried. I'll put that one back for the moment, and I'm going to come in with quite a strong orangey colour. And this is like a terracotta of some sort. Sanguine, there you go, perfect. Okay, and to that I'm going to add in a little touch here and there of red around the bottom of the eye here. Just to suggest that warmth as the eye ends and the iris ends, sorry, and the rest of it starts. And they're going to do the same around here. Little bits of orange that are right on the cusp of some of these shapes. You can see them, and it's just, we're going to lose some of them, keep some of them. They're just little shapes within the eye itself. If you look in a mirror closely at your own eyes, you'll see many of these little fancy little bits of colour that can come up a little bit higher, I think, and come across at a deeper angle, like so. And then there are one or two that are leading up into that area here. So I'm just going to try and suggest that very carefully. There's a little bit of warmth at the bottom, so I'm gently going to tap that in. And drawing pencils is a lot of observation. It's a lot of care taken in where you put marks and why you put them there. I mean, ordinarily you wouldn't put them there in painting as such because you're working more fresh, and this particular medium allows you the choice of working quite detailed and precisely. And that's what made adult colouring books so much fun a few years ago. I'm sure they still are, but a lot of people use them, and that's what I think gave many sort of sales and great interest into using colour pencils as drawing devices, as colouring devices, and creating artwork purely on the strength of these colour pencils. I think they're gorgeous things, they really are. And now then, where are we? Keith, good evening to you, mate. Kate, good evening to you. And Liam from New Mills, good evening to you, sir. Thank you for your nice comment on the video. Appreciated. So we're going to put a strong piece of orange in there. At the end of this, I'm going to end up with more pencils on the deck than in the case, but that's the way it goes. Just going to warm up some of this orange, make it a little stronger. Only to cool quite a bit of it down, to be quite honest. I don't want to leave it so obvious, but I'm just trying to create different marks within. Okay, nice burnish up through there. I'm going to add a bit of orange just to warm that up through the back there. I may lose it all, but I quite like it, because around this corona, or around the edge of this here, it looks quite hot, but it gets quite dark. Okay, now I'm going to come back in with the black, and to that I'm just going to come up and use the black pretty much as a grey. I'm just going to come in and get that going up into there, and replace some of that orange with some of the darker colour, and that then tapers away to nothing, and very, very dark around the edge. So now I am pressing harder, as I expect you can see, or even here, taking that all the way around. And let that come away very, very softly. Subtle little strokes, like so. And then taking that all the way up the edge, very, very subtly again, because the real darks are yet to come. This looks quite dark, but it's not as dark as we're going to try and get it. Now, if I really need to get this dark, I've got and blend it in. There's only so much tooth to a paper. If you can think of papers in terms of like this, then the more tooth that this has got as a paper, the more coloured pencil it will hold. It's no different to pastel pencils or even chalk pastels themselves. Come to that, or even oil pastels. They all rely on a grab from the paper. And the thing is that the smoother the paper, the less tooth that it's got. Okay, and therefore the less layering you can actually do. So what you have to do, you either burnish, which is apply a lot of pressure and drive your pigment into the paper and down into these valleys, but you do tend to flatten out the hills at the same time, and you can end up with quite a shiny surface. Another method is to use a specific burnishing pencil. Now this is the same stuff in here as is that makes up this lead, but it has no pigment, so that will give you a softer burnish. Or then you can use something like a solvent such as Zest-It. Okay, now Zest-It is, a lot of us as oil painters know it, but that on a brush can dilute, and what that does is it reacts with the ingredients in the binder of the pencil, unites them, flattens them, and they sink into the paper surface. And that way you actually save the tooth of the paper to add more layers to, while still getting this burnished effect. I might do some in here, see how we go. Alright, so let's get back to the plot carefully. And I've lost my picture, there we are, bring it back. And where are we? No, Teresa, I infringed the rules. What did you do, Teresa? My Facebook account has been disabled. Unbelievable. What have you been doing? Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but hopefully it will come back online and you'll be able to use it again. I'm going to increase the umbers up in here now, and to that I'm going to come in a different direction to all the rest and just gently come in with lovely shades of the brown at this point, bringing it down into some of these marks here, a little more in strength, and come over the top of that into the top of the eye there, just gently taking this deeper and deeper and into that orange like so. Now before you do any burnishing, before you do any such thing with any solvents, you need to have a good few layers on your drawing before you start. If you put solvent onto an area that's got very few layers, you're going to come a cropper because it's just going to leave an ugly stain there. Not what you intended at all. Okay, the grey that I'm picking up now is quite a dark one. It's a Payne's grey, and I'm going to just gently come into the lower part of this from here, coming down through here in the eye at this point, give myself a lovely little shade of colour there, and back into the darkness of the edge. Similarly, just around the area in front of there. So I'm going to take that down to there like that, and just clip it in front of that light source, and then comes down just a few taps into there. Now, because of the length of times that some of these drawings can take, it might be a case that this one will be done over more than one episode or live stream. It's not going to be always a quick done thing. So I warn you now, we go so far with this, and then if you all have gone to sleep, then I'm afraid we'll have to come back and repeat the whole thing and move on with the fur and other bits further on. Okay. Now what I haven't done is allow for any of the dark lines in here and the light lines of the fur, but we're not up there yet, so we're still really talking about the eye itself. What I'm going to come in now and do is I'm going to use a mid grey, which is a cool grey. This is a great set for having a series of greys which are both warm and cool, and this one is one of the cool ones, and it's called a cold grey 233 in name. I'm just going to run that round the edge of this darker area here. It gives me that little bit of light skin before it turns away and into the other skin, and therefore the darkness like so. Now it does get a bit lighter there, so I'm going to punch up the grey to another cold one, but something that is even paler, so that we get that lovely change from darker to that lighter, and then that can come back in and disappear in here into the dark again. That pretty does that nice bit of skin for the moment, certainly. And now I'm going to come in with the black again, if I can find where I put it. Too many black pencils. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to strike hard on this and come in and take it all the way. There's a little bit of skin there which I need to allow for. And just come in with the first layer. I'm not going to try and push this to the darkest pressure at the start. I'm just going to come in here, put one general colour in so I know where I'm going with it, and then take that in and over there. And I'm going to leave a few areas that are obviously little bits of white fur, so I'm trying to paint them negative space, or allow negative space within the positive of the dark. Whichever way around you want to do that, I'll suggest it. Like so. And take that on up and over the top of the eye here. The area here is very hard to tell at this point, which is eye and which is shadow and which is fur or skin or anything else. There is just so much going on at this point that it's very, very hard to determine what area is what. But I want to try and leave some little light areas that could well be little bits of white fur popping over from above, just hanging over the eye itself. And then take that off over here, just very generally at the moment. A little bit dark in there. And let's take that down this way. We've got that very strong dark down there, and I'm going to leave that little bit of grey light that's around the edge of the eye, very, very carefully. Taking that all the way underneath so I don't lose that piece of skin. There we are. I think we're about right. It does shallow out a little bit there, so I'm going to allow for that. It's not a completely parallel line that goes all around. It deepens there, and it just loses out a little bit up as it disappears away. So now I'm going to come in with a second layer going across the first. If you really want to burnish, a good way of also doing it will be, I'm just going to come out with this outline first and foremost, just across here, like so, like a double valley there, and just loses out to a bit of stuff there. You can quite happily come in little circles like this, and that way you sort of almost burnishing as you go. But the dark on its own here at this point is really not enough to do it. What we want to do is not have as any sort of lines showing, any paper pattern coming through. And this is the nice thing about this pastel matte paper, is it doesn't really have that much color, sorry, not that much very pattern within the paper molding itself, unlike watercolor papers that do have a very definite pattern to them. And indeed so do some of the I'm actually going to bring some grey light into that. Sorry, I'm thinking and talking, not always work together. Just going to bring a little bit of light value in there, and I'm just going to bring a little bit of darker value into that. This is skin, not fur, but it's very closely to the fur and will turn into fur almost at that point. It's sort of starting with bits of fur, if that makes any sense. And through here I'm going to come in with some umbers, some orange. God damn, I think I need a drink and a rest. Well, Teresa, you need to find out what you did so you don't do it again. We've all been there. I've had accounts suspended momentarily for different reasons. I'm not aware of what I've done, but obviously I've done something. Coming over with some of this Indium Red over the black is just to warm it up a little bit into that blue. Bringing it down through here and then up into this dark up in here. And I'm going to come over with the black again, so it's not going to remain. It's just to give this a real deepness into this dark here, like so. And I'm going to lose that in favor of a darker grey colour up into here as we come down, and I can play around with the black over that at some point before we come up into this area here and lose it all together. Alright, so now we are starting to strengthen some of the values in our eye, but we're nowhere near yet. I'm just going to bring up my image so I can see some more details again. And I come in here with some nice darks. I want to get this really pumping now. So I'm going to come in here and really mess up and start pressing quite strongly, and then gently drift that dark down in successive darks. But if I go too black, it's going to really mess up the whole thing. I've got to try and keep the colour and the warmth and the glow in the eye, even though this is really in shadow. So I'm working the whole area, and I probably will come in and blend it very, very soon, just to get everything sort of leveled out and working how I want it to be. Just going to come and suggest the line that's coming down through there. And as I say, you had the choice, or I had the choice, of whether I make this tear duct just the grey colour that it would be, or indeed put some of that glisten in there that is very suggestive of moistness and around the edge as it's sort of leaking out from the tear duct. A little bit of dark shadow down through there. This we will deal with at some point, and I've actually taken it out of shape, so I'm going to come across here and just gently put that in there and that in, so, and that comes in and up to there, a little higher than I've got it, something like that. Not a problem, because if this area was, I could erase some of it, but it's not. I'm just going to suggest that that's the hair, and we've then got coming down into the white. So first and foremost, I'm going to come in with a mid blue colour, and I'm just going to put in a base colour. I'm not even going to follow it in the line of the hair. I just want to give a blue influence to this area as it goes up. I may even put a bit more blue into that too. Just give that a little extra cool colour against all those lovely oranges. That will really work and really pump the eye. And I'm going to do the same through here on this section. That lovely mid blue just lifts that piece of skin and makes the whole thing blend nicely. Alright, and I'm going to put a little bit over here. Just to make that a little bit more solid. And there is a little influence there, just very delicately. Very delicately. Put some there and over on here too. There we are. Leave it like that. There is that little flash of blue through there. And leave it at for the minute and keep looking at it, keep coming back to it, keep checking it and working the whole area. Now I don't work the whole painting, I work the area out, but hopefully you can see where we're going with it. Okay, nothing else on the chat. We've got 20 people watching. That's all good, and thank you very much for the support. Just going to come in here with some darker orangey reds, which is using the burnt sienna this time, just to make that a little bit richer as it goes into these areas here. Now I'm starting to burnish a little harder by working those colours more strongly, like so, and a little bit of warmth in there against the blue, which will turn to a dirty grey colour because we've got the red over the blue. And we're going to be looking at some of the shapes. Now what I could do, I'm tempted to, but if this goes horribly wrong, I'm going to curse myself for doing it. But I am going to come in and I'm going to put a little bit of Zest-It in place. Now you can't see it, but there it is in a little pot. Then I put a little bit on the brush, just an old brush, doesn't make a lot of odds, but it will pick up all your colours. So work your colours very, very gently, because it will pick it up and spread them around. That does give a beautiful glow. So work your lightest colours out first before you go into your darker ones. And you will have to wait for this to dry, so that gives me the opportunity to go in and work some other areas with the pencil before we come back into this area and work the eye further. Now you can see how that suddenly grabs those colours and makes them so much richer. When I first saw this technique being done with the burnishing, I really thought, well, how different to actually painting is that? But after a little while I realised that actually it's got nothing to do with painting. You're merely distributing pigment through means of making it move through this zestet medium or any other solvent medium. Just going to bring that to that point there. Very, very dark. Nice dark around there. You can see how much richer it is making all these colours. And even if you lose some of it gives way, then you can just come back in later and over. But what's happened is that instead of building up and burnishing, you're not burnishing. You're merely spreading and letting this go into the paper itself. And that gives you so much more to come back in and play with the mediums and add further colour on top of that that's already been put in. Like so. Going to bring that through that blue. And you can see how the black's picked up, so I'm going to take that back up and be careful. I'm not going to come in here yet because there's not enough pigment really to do the job. So I'm just teasing this a little bit further around through here, darkening that off. And I'm going to come in on the eye now. Look at that, how that makes that eye just go wow. And in the top of it too. Okay, now being very careful, because this is where you will deposit dirt when you don't want it. So you're going to lift a little bit of this off, take this through here, lift that through there, and you've got a lovely, lovely glaze across that light area through there. I'll try and bring some in there if I can. Just drop that down a bit. Lift a bit of pigment up. Drop that into there. Be very careful. May just have to put that over and do that once again. It's just that coming down there. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that for now, and we'll come back in and see what happens. Ben, I thought you'd already been in, mate. Then I missed that. Let me just go back up there. I'm sure you came in earlier. Ben, good evening. Oh, yes. And Ben, good evening to you, sir. Right. Okay, let me come back into this area here now. And I'm going to come back firmly with the black. It's going to be a very strong mark of dark through here. Like so. Looking at the way that that laid down then, I think there is a bit of wetness there still remaining. So I've got to be a bit careful. I don't want to damage anything. So I'm going to come in and just really make that dance with darks. Like so. And I want it as rich as I can make it. And I'm going to put some orange over it, believe it or not, in a moment. And I'm going to put some darks over here, just to start with. And start suggesting I need to sharpen this pencil. This pencil's gone quite blunt. Now you can see the difference, how we'll get that in the right place. Look how sharp a few turns has done, but it has taken some wood off as well. So you do have to weigh up your need for absolute sharp. And but if you do too much pressing around on one of these, if it was something like a Caran d'Ache luminescence, it will most likely break on you, which is not what you want, of course. I'm just going to start bringing out, suggesting some hairs starting to come out from here now. short hairs at this point, moving out and away. They're coming down here, so I'm working in the direction that they would be growing, and make sure you do that always. And you've got lots of little areas where you've got negative, you've got lots of little stray hairs that are coming through from that white. I want to leave those in place if I can, coming through here. So I'm going to leave those. That's the white mark there. I get quite confused. So I'm going to make this quite solid through here now. Come back in like that. And that really is a solid lump of dark through here. Just going to come through there so I don't forget it. And then start looking at short marks through here, which I need to really get dark going up in here. Now this is really burnishing now. I'm really sort of coming over and giving a different technique other than using the Zest It. And I'm burnishing the darks in. I can still go over with Zest It. If I find that I'm having trouble with layering, I can actually increase the amount of chance of layering more by coming back in and putting the Zest It in, and then that will put it into the paper and allowing me to come back into the tooth. But a little less chance of it because I've been pressing down those valleys as I told you. Now then, let me get this right. This is dark through here, coming through there like so. I'm just giving myself a bit of an idea before I go back in and start playing around with the colour in here and the darks. I'm going to warm some of this up too. Some of these darks will become redder. Diana, good evening to you. Hello everyone, I can't wait to look back at the beginning of this. The eye looks so realistic. Fabulous work, Paul. Thank you very much, Diana. It's a tremendous comment, thank you. Can you mix colour pencil with oil paintings or for fine detail mixed media? I've not tried is the answer to that, Diana. I really wouldn't like to suggest yes and then have you come back at me and say, well, that was a load of rubbish because it didn't work. I don't know. I don't think that you would not put colour pencil on top of oil. I can pretty much say that without too much of a worry. But so I'm sort of quite a loss at the point where you put it in. They are, or the polychromos certainly have oil in them, but whether or not you can actually sit them on an oil surface, it depends on how much tooth you've given that oil surface. If it's got tooth, you may be in with a shout, but I've never tried it and I really don't know what to suggest to you on that one, apart from have a go and just see what happens is what I would say. I don't want that one, I don't want that one. I need a blue and a grey just to come in on this dark in here. So I'm just going to come in and suggest some blues through here. There's a little bit of blue going on in here, some very subtle shades of blue. So I'm just going to come in very, very gently and just layer some of that in there. That's not too much. But I'm going to come back in and darken this down in a moment. But I want to add a lot of blue into it to begin with. Just checking what I've got going up in here. A lot darker than I've got it. Goes away to nothing. Okay, so that's the blue element done. So I'm going to come back in with a grey now. For that I'm using this one, which I think is a warm grey. Yes, it is. So that will counteract some of the blue by putting a little bit of warmth to the blue, but discolouring it and darkening it all at the same time. So we get a little bit of light going on in this part, but it's being overshadowed by so much more above. So you see light, but it is quite dark. Now you can see how doing that sparrow took 3.5 hours to complete it. And this we are already, I don't know what time it is, we're already an hour and 6 minutes in. So I think that if you want to see fur in that next week, we're going to have to continue this on. But then I look at some of the other pencil artists out there that are doing jobs with this, and I think that see how that there is still damp with zest it. See how that is moving around. That's what I don't really want to do. And that was just a case in point that the zest is still evident, still drying, and the pencil is still unsupported. It's still fugitive in terms of being stable on the paper. That was just a classic. Fortunately, I can make use of that because there is a little corona of light around this shadow thing, so we can make that happen, and there's enough there. So if I'm going to make a bad mark on it, that was probably the right place to do it. But it just goes to show you how unstable the medium can actually be given the right circumstances. So I'm working into some of these darks with a heavier black mark, losing out to some of that blue in places. Just a little bit darker through there would be good. And down into here we've got a little change of direction of some of these furs. And these hairs are coming up, they're a little bit light in places, but we will take care of that. And to that end I am going to come over with a base layer of grey. Now I'm going to suggest that we have our light eye stripe that comes from there up through to here and then comes to a point there. So that really is where I want my eye stripe. So to that end I'm going to come in with just a very general grey shape. If this is still on camera, I hope it is. And I'm not paying too much heed to coming in the direction of the fur. If anything, it will come down towards the cheekbone like so. That's just almost like an undercolour. I'm going to bring one or two flecks of it coming through what will be the dark stripe underneath. There we are. Okay, and now that's done, I'm going to come in with a paler blue. Now this I believe is called Sky Blue number 146. And to that end I'm just going to come in and start suggesting the shadowy effects of this lovely blue. Just working it over into subtle little layers. Okay. Again, bringing some of them into what will be the black marks. There will also be some subtle reds and umbers, or warmer values, not necessarily red or umber, but warmer values coming in through here. And then these give away to a few shadowy hairs that are coming down, and we will put some other darker accents into that. Now I've just seen a piece, where's my rubber band? So I'm going to take a little bit of pencil mark out there first and foremost. Don't want that really showing up, and nor a piece that I've just seen running out there. Okay. Do try and watch for those and try and take them out if you can. I've done pictures in the past where I've left them in stupidly, not thinking about it. Easy done, but easily solvable. And just dancing this blue around here, just dancing it, just making a little bit of area that is cooler in places. I can work that up into cooler still or darker still, and joining this area in here with some darks and some lights into that blue, and into this area through here. Just taking that and losing that there. A little bit of blue over that warm, so that we get the shape of a bit of light at the edge of that skin. And we've got a little bit of tear duct there. Leave that like that for a moment. I'm still waiting for this area to dry up enough. I'm not confident that it has done. There's quite a bit of zest that went on, so it's got to absorb and it's got to evaporate and go. Zest is not the quickest one for doing that. Sometimes it's worth experimenting with maybe another solvent, Gamsol or something like that you could use, which may evaporate a little bit quicker. I'm not saying it will, but it might be worth trying that out. Okay, so I'm just going to put a bit more warmth into there. Yeah, I'm just testing the waters, and I can see that that is still taking too much off of here on there. It's sort of, you can feel that there's zest that's still in the surface, and it comes into this and takes the pigment off way too easily, and you just get a feel for that. So come here, there's a whole different ball game in here. I'm going to bring that out to there and let that come around in a sharp line there. And this area I do want to play around with this. So I'm itching to get going and put a little bit of medium into that too. Not always needed, but it can work, can help. I put a bit of warmth in there. I did say I wanted to put a bit of warmth into some of these hairs here, and I'm sort of depositing shapes, strokes, little fine strokes in the way that the fur will travel, and that's given us that nice snaky shape to this part here. And then I can come back in, and you can see that there are little dark areas that are coming down through, little touch of dark through there, little shadowy parts. Can't quite see what's what, but there are little areas that are darker than others and being created by hairs or bits of the skin and whatever on the surface there. I think that works quite well. Not too sure. We'll have a look at that. I keep an eye on everything basically. It's not a case of will it or won't it work. It's a case of checking, rechecking, and making sure that what you're doing is what should be done. And you know, if you're not sure, go back, reassess it, do a bit more, add to it, subtract, whatever needs to be done to make it work. I come here with a very strong dark, and I'm not using my black at the moment, I just realized. I'm just looking at the way this hair, now if you look at the way the hair works, it works in rosettes, a bit like the hair on the back of your head. It comes out here and it goes like that. And that's how the hair lays. And it does that all over the body. So it's worth remembering. You see it more when you're painting a leopard or something of that nature, because you do get very clear evidence of the rosettes in the pattern of the leopard. Little taps. Now what I was trying to say earlier, and I forgot to continue it, this image is freehand drawn, and you're more than welcome to do the same. I'm not suggesting that you should or you should not. What I will do and say is for my patrons, there will be, the line art will be available for you on the Patreon channel, so that if you wish to not get so heavily involved in trying to draw it, but more over trying to get on with the colour aspect as opposed to worrying about the actual drawing, then please be my guest. Use the line art, that's what it's served there for, and it will help you, I'm sure. That's the idea. This is getting drier, but it's still not quite there. I'm going to use a little bit of this warmth under this area here, just to suggest that light. I can see warmth, and I want to put it in like that. A little glug getting very dry. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Wendy. It may be a case of getting hold of some Gamsol on the internet and giving that a go. But I definitely think it would be worthwhile having a go at that. So anyway, back to the plot. Just taking this down a little further. Very, very strong dark running through here. And then we've got a nice area we can start building up some of these darks even further by layering up even more of the black. Even though I've gone over with the black, there's still bits of white popping through, and it's still having an effect on our drawing. But I've also gone over it with a bit of warmth too. And hair is never actually black, it's actually a very, very dark brown. And I like to put in, whether I'm doing a dog, cat or anything else that's got black hair, I really do like trying to put a little bit of warmth into it just to deepen it. Gives this sense of real darkness going on. And if it comes out like this is starting to turn a little bit too brown, just go back in with some black over the top and you will soon lose that brown effect, but it just deepens it, and that really is good. Okay, I ought to start doing something up here really, hadn't I? But I'm gonna blot out a lot of what you see if I start doing too much up here. But I've got to, I can't leave it, so I'm just going to come in and start suggesting by literally drawing marks in. And I don't need to worry about rubbing out the or erasing the pencil at this point, because you're not going to really see it. It's got a lot of light hairs and dark hairs, so it's going to really be quite mixed up in terms of what you see. I'm going to put that in there, just a few grey taps like so, and there will be a very, very pale grey here because there's a little muscle here over the eye, and a bit like when we sort of squint down, our eyebrows move. No different for a cat. They will have muscles that will contort and move, and this has just got a little one here that's sort of pulling a little bit of the light out of that part of the white of the hair that's going off over there. Little things, little bits of this information that's really useful when you're painting wildlife or anything really. Just having a little bit of extra knowledge on how things really work. Just putting one or two extra little bits of pale greys into some of these, so that there is not just pure white paper, but we're going to make all of that, I hope, work for us. And you can put darker ones in by all means. These darks that you're seeing are not black hairs in white, they're merely where there is a little bit of shadow underneath the white hairs or through the white hairs that give a suggestion that there is depth to them. So that's why I've done it in this fashion. So you've got little taps of this dark colour, and it gets quite exciting because you're sort of depositing these lovely little marks that will then, from here, they will go into little light brown ones, and so the grey gives way to the pale brown, and so on. It just builds. You can take this up as high as you want it, like so, and again through here, and just working the whole of this area at the moment, ready to come back in with some deeper, darker colours and build on this depth of this fur. And by tapping away at the beginning here, we've created the sense that some of those are coming into this area right here. So there's dark, there is light. We're working positive over negative spaces, and that's good. Kate, not as quick as watercolor. No, sadly it's not, Kate. It really is not. This is not for, I suppose, the faint-hearted when it comes to time, but it's something that you do not need to finish in one session. I'm trying to get as much of this done for you guys to show you this now, but you don't really have to get it all nailed in one hit. And So to that end, it's something that can be done over a period of weeks, days, evenings, whatever time you can have it. Leave it there, leave the subject on the screen, get your pencils out. It's clean, it's easy, and you just continue where you left off, and it's not going to go anywhere. Just cover it over and off you go again. So that works. I've not played with coloured pencils much. Do you have a floral or landscape study with pencils? Sadly, no, I don't. I tend to do birds and animals. I am thinking of doing a landscape, maybe with some boats or something, but I'm not known for doing flowers, I've got to be said. And I know I've painted some flowers more recently, but I don't tend to do flowers as a rule. It used to be a standing joke with my students that I never got near flowers at all, but I have relented a little bit in recent years to do one or two suggestive flowers. You'll never find me doing detailed flowers, that's for sure. Okay, I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to come in, and I really hope that I'm going to be safe enough to put in a little bit of extra colour now and work some of these beautiful colours in here. And just gingerly testing the waters, as it were. That wants to be a little yellower. Come to another yellow, a little greyed out, and just warming some of these up. Now that broke away then. Just a nice soft brush gets rid of this. I've had for years. It was meant to be for oil painting. Quite what I was going to do with oil painting with this darn thing, I don't know. I could do half a barn door with one stroke, so I never used it for oils, but it's been in my arsenal to do something with it for all this time, and I found its perfect use in assisting me when it comes to doing coloured pencil. I think we've got enough dryness out of here now to come back in and play around with some of these colours. There's some lovely radiating little marks coming out from here through there. Just very softly put in, like so, and then they come to a grey colour. So I'm going to transfer it. Now it's a little bit too light. Come to the next grade down, and I need a point on that one. There we go, that's a lot better than it was. Not perfect, but not so bad. And I'm just going to come in and suggest some little areas of darker grey coming away from the eye here, cooling down, trying to make this a little more realistic now by putting these subtle little shades and shadows and channels, and I don't know what the fluid marks. I have no idea what causes this. If any of you out there watching this happen to be a doctor or something of that nature that would know exactly why this is, that our eyes do this, that have these lovely patterns in them, I'd love to know what causes that exactly. I'm talking about the many varieties that you see within an iris. It's wonderful. The colours, that was a little bit too cool, so I'm coming over that again, and I am going to just warm it up just ever so slightly. But now I am sort of just touching little bits in here, little bits in there. Got the right one. I want to put that one down. I don't want to sharpen this one now. I seem to be cranking the wood away on this painting. There we go. That's not so bad. And we've got that lovely shadow in here, so I want to put a pale shadow in. I'm just going to come in very, very delicately. Very delicately. And it's got a lighter edge at one point. And it's somewhat dark out there. And that sort of line comes down to meet it. Lots of subtle little variations moving on now. And there's that sort of one that comes this way too, breaks away, little tracks of light coming into there, and it doesn't, it gives way to a little bit of dark and a bit of light around here. So I'm going to come into there, just take that down to a dark there, and that looks like we've got a bit of light through there. Then I think I want to try, if I can, and put a bit of a pale yellow white around the edge here. I lost a little bit, and I'm just going to try and replace some of that now, just to give that a sense of light there. That's catching a lot of light through there, in there, in there. Okay. I'm still looking at that, I'm thinking that that's too dark, so I'm going to come back and box a little bit clever and put a much paler version of a warm in there. I think it'd still be dark enough. Yes, that was the right choice. It's just a little bit too dark where I had it, so I'm just coming in and playing with some of that, because I don't want to lose all that lovely pale yellow. I do want to keep a lot of that happening. Lovely little greyish marks coming away from the eye here and touching into that mark there, like so, and it's further enhanced here. There's that little shadow there. I'm going to come in with a mark there, and then just to come back in and tease around there with a bit of that light, just to suggest that is just giving me that beautiful shape there. And I want a pale blue. I don't know, I've got a very pale blue here. Whether or not I can just get away with putting some of this in here, yeah, I might just do that. Look at that, got away with it. And come in with a darker cool colour under there, underneath it, just into the back there. That's it. And now I really am sort of playing around with some of these values, just shaping them up. We've got the ability to relayer, because where I was getting heavy with pigment, we've got away with, by putting the blend in, by using the other substance in there, then we've gone in and we've flattened out those colours. We've got them great, they've gone into the paper, which still allows us now to have the tooth to carry on and improve our lot, as it were, and re-colour or re-layer more colours and more values in over the top of where we've just been. I'm just going to come in there, strengthen that against that lovely colour there, and I'm going to come in and cool this area through here, just ever so gently. Lots of little lines coming here, there and everywhere. And this is the part where you sort of really are working hard with the painting. I want to come in with some dark there, and what I've got is not dark enough, so I'm going to come in with what's a dark sepia. Going to bring that in there off of the back, so it just touches in the top of that there, so we have a reason why this is sort of dark around the top here and crashing out into the light further on and beyond. There we are. Just plays and teasing some dark sepia into here. It's not black, it's not as harsh as black, but it is giving me that real deep dark into that eye. I'm just checking this here, it needs to be a bit darker coming across here to give that a bit more shadow and shape just going out of the eye at that point. Now I keep looking at it, and I quite like where we're at. I'm going to come back in on some of this area here and put a little bit of this light really to burnish. This is where the light is escaping the eye, and it's really important to put some really strong touches of light into this area here. This is coming through from there to there, and I will try and punch up there as well. I think I touched it a little bit and it's got a little bit contaminated on the white, so I'm going to see if I can pump that up a little bit. Okay. And I don't like those stripes. I seem to have created some stripes in the back here, and I want to get rid of some of that. Make them disappear somewhat and put some sepia up into there. This sepia really works well. Should have been using that somewhat a little bit earlier, I think, because it does blend, works nicely, gives a warm black, and very, very effective in this particular situation. Some very strong marks here, suggesting that there are some white hairs that are just dipping down into this area. So I'm leaving the negative spaces like so. I come back in with 1 or 2 marks up in here just to increase the depth of the darks in 1 or 2 of these before they go away to the lighter values. And check to see if that wouldn't help. I think it would. That real sepia is, I don't think I'm going to bother putting any burnishing or any solvents across this. I think that just by coming in there now with that sepia, I just warmed that up but deepened it as well, all in the same process, quite like that. Just going to come in here, shake that out, flatten that a bit there, and then just check this shape on this one. Come in with a real strong dark edge to that. It comes away a little bit grayer, so I'm going to come over and just tap in a little bit of sepia, very, very faintly, very softly does it. I think we've got quite a real looking eye. I'm wondering if I come over now, reinforce this pupil, whether that will just warm it up nicely. I think it is, you know, look at that. So this is the black, but essentially, we're now using that sepia just to pump that eyeball right out. Okay, that's not bad. I think though, my blue in the covered over here is the same value as pretty much out here. So I'm just going to come in and just gently take that away to be a little bit deeper in there. Now I may regret that, but I think we're about right with that value. Okay, another glug is needed. That's a good point, Derek. Yeah. I can do that, Sean, at some point. They're lovely creatures. I used to own several barn owls over my years. I've had many, as it happens. So yeah, I love those. They're a beautiful bird. You can train them to hover, believe it or not. You can have them waiting on, in a sense, which is quite interesting. Put a little bit of warmth into that. I'm going to put in another colour that I haven't used so far, and I think that one is going to be this one, which is a, heavens above, what is this one? It's a brown ochre, number 182, and I just want to warm the values in here into that sort of shady part there, so it looks like a bit of a light around it. I'm just going to come in, tap or two here, just to reinforce that little sense of light that's around the edge of this thing, so that you get the idea that it's sort of floating with that light underneath it and around it. Okay, I'm going to sit and leave that now for a while and see what I need to do to it. I'm going to touch out a bit of value here. I'm going to come over a couple of these and fade them back a little bit. I'm going to come over those with a lighter value and come back in with some of this creamier colour as well, just to take the pressure off some of them. They got a little bit out of hand, a little bit dark. So I'm just coming in and replacing some of those colours with a bit more pale colour. And while I'm at it, I'm going to come in with a bit of yellow and reinforce a couple of those as well. Just a sense of that beautiful colour. And some down in here. I tell you something about colour pencils over and above any other painting. When you're painting, generally you just paint what you see, and you sort of like you interpret what you see, you make a situation for that. But when you're doing colour pencils, you start to see so many more things. It makes you look very much harder at the subject that you're rendering. And this is doing just that. I keep looking at stuff that, you know, that needs to be a different yellow or a different blue or a different colour grey or whatever it might be. It needs changing. And then you just make those changes and you suddenly realise, yeah, that's what it needed. Just by dancing this yellow over some of these other colours, it's making it richer. Making it lots richer. Okay. Probably going to leave it there, I think, on that. I want to change the value of that. Every time I see something, I'm now sort of seeing it needs to be a little paler, a little lighter, a little something else. I'll bring a little bit of blue values through here and lighten this up a little shade or two, and that will then come around the back of there and up into there. And take it even further up, softening it a little bit more and lessening its impact overall. Okay, just looking at it, just looking at what I've drawn and what I can see in the eye itself, there are just amazing different amounts of colour. But the more I look, the more I see that I want to change one or two things as I'm moving forward. Now I don't know if it's my drawing. My drawing looks right, but when I look at it on the screen, it looks a bit darker. I just want to lighten one or two of these in here. So tapping a little bit of that whitish colour over the top and just bringing back some of the pale colour to those shapes and those marks. But then I look again and I see additional colours, a little dark mark here and there, a little bit of red or something there in the little spot. Just something that changes the whole argument from my point of view, what I've just seen and what I want to do. I'm going to stop there, I think, for that point, and we are going to give this probably another 20 minutes, half an hour, if that's okay with you. Colin just got back into the house in France, listening to the stream en route. Now I can watch it too. Good on you, mate. I'm glad you're safe. You don't seem to work all over the painting at once as you do with yours, as usual with pencils to do each section. Yes, I think generally you tend to work certainly on this, because if you work all over a painting, you will never finish an area sufficiently. And because I feel that the pencil line in here is a little less stable than maybe on a watercolor paper, I think that it's safe to work an area and work out. I quite like the idea of finishing this. Ordinarily, you know, I would work all over, bounce all over a painting, because I feel that when you are painting, and if you work over the whole thing, then the last mark you make is the sum total of all your knowledge, so the painting comes up as an equal. To a point, you're right that this would suffer the same thing. But hopefully, and I do mean hopefully, that if you work this as you go, then you tend to put everything into that area and then you move on to the next area, and hopefully it isn't too different by the time you get out to the outer reaches and the outer parts of this. Could be wrong, but it's just the way that I sort of come to deal with doing pencil work as opposed to other stuff and, you know, normal painting work. Just checking a few marks here, just darkening down a little bit in here, taking it back a little further than it was. Okay, and then just greying this up a little bit more here. There we are. Subtle little adjustments, that's all this whole thing is about. Right. Okay, so we're going to come in with some reds now. And just into some of these here. Just 1 or 2. Just to break them into that warmth as the black fur as it is, or brown fur, is hitting that sunlight. They just turn a little bit more warmer. And then they come and turn back into the darks as they go into the shade. I'm going to bring some darks into here. And you don't have to use black, you can use that sepia that I was using, which is dark sepia. Sharpen it up a little bit. Get a nice point to that. And then just start looking at bringing some of these shapes forward and start branching out. We've pretty much done the eye. Unless I see something awful, I'm going to sort of live with it. Coming down here now and starting to form up some of the tear duct shapes. Whether or not I leave that glistening in, I don't know. And sort of everything inside says no, but hey, it's there and it's a choice you have to make. You know, you can look at another tiger 2 seconds later and it wouldn't have anything like that. It'd be quite dry. It's just that this one has recently woken up, and so therefore it's got so much wet around the eyes at that point. Right, I'm going to come up here and start suggesting some of these browner marks that are breaking out, and they've got the hair that's coming out, that white hair. So we're going to start tapping in negative hairs from the black to suggest that we've got the white giving way to the black at this point, like so. Nice and easy to do if you just remember not to cover all the white out and just work the marks in the way and the direction so that you little taps. Some of them are stubby. Don't forget, hair lengths change. Some hair comes and bends towards you, like some of these in here are starting to curl this way. And this one here is a long one. There's a long dark light one off of here. So I'm going to put the dark in here, but I'm going to allow some of those lights of that blue to come on through and suggest that there's a couple of light ones there that are coming into the dark areas here, and then will give way to the brown furs. So before we finish tonight, I will try and get some of this dark into some of that lovely fur to complement the blues as we take some of the darks into the more oranges, and those will be light at first and darkened up in time. And I'm going to put in, suggest some of that now. This area towards here, I said that there is a little bit too close, so what I will do is use the eraser and I discover where I put it. There we are. It was alright when it was square, I could see it, but now it's all sort of mashed up. I'm going to lose this mark here that I put in earlier. Get rid of all of that, take some of that out, and get rid of it. And I'm going to literally work sort of by eye in a sense. So I'm just going to put in a very light orangey colour to start with. That's probably too orange. I thought that was going to be quite a good orange, but that's just not quite where I want it to be. Now I'm going to come in with a much paler orangey yellow, probably a deep cadmium colour, what colour do they call this? There, look at that cadmium orange right on the nail. So I'm going to come in there with that lovely cad orange, just as a gentle area to suggest the marks, like so. They're going to come in, and I can go over them, so I'm not too worried if they go in places where they actually shouldn't be right now. But it gives me that lovely light colour. I said that this is shaded in here, and it then breaks over the cheekbone and comes down into here, like so. Actually, that mark there, I think that's where I put it, and that's wrong. It should be down here somewhere. That's where that one will finally come. And I'm just going to come in here, put a few suggested marks in, longer hairs, but I'm not trying to cover up all the white paper, because some of that white paper will become darker and some of it will become even yellower, giving rise to different values of hair over the whole thing. You could start with a very, very light coloured yellow and build up to that. That's not a problem. Bonnie, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Lovely to see you. That's cool. That's made my night. Thank you. I know how busy you are. Okay, so I'm just coming back in and just putting in a few lighter marks before we start giving way to some of these other darker values. Like so. Now I've got to be really careful because I've got a professional colour pencil artist watching. If I make a wrong mistake, she's going to know. Thanks, Bonnie. So if you want to see some really good colour pencil, go and nip over to Bonnie's channel sometime. She does a cracking job. Right, I'm going to carry on deepening some of these values now and sharpen some of these pencils that I got blunt over the evening. Yeah, I can come out. I've lost it, haven't I? Okay, let's come out of there. Sorry about that, Wendy. There we go. Didn't realise, didn't pay attention, did I? Okay, let's just come back into some of these marks here. And I did say that they're going to give way to some darker ones as we come over the cheekbone and work in that way. Now that's cool. Okay. Work the flow of the hair. Look at the way and the direction that it's moving. And make sure you keep the strokes about the same sort of length as you can see them. But don't just go randomly diving off and creating fur marks, because the fur is changing and it's not constant. The lights are changing on it, and the dark and the negative spaces have got to be observed. So don't just crack on and think that you're just putting all these lines in and you've got fur. It's not going to work out that way, and you'll come unstuck. So now I'm just going to come in with a few darks with the I think it's the Payne's Grey again. Yeah, we're going to use the Payne's Grey just to suggest some of this dark that's coming off, and then we can work back into the oranges further on. But I'm leaving negative spaces to suggest the blue or shadowy eye stripe hair coming into the darks. Okay, so just watch that. Don't lose out and just make straight flat edges. You need hair to move into hair, and it will if you just take a little bit of care as you do it. And just subtly bring that round and down, and then the darks will give way to the lights and vice versa. Going up through here, just suggesting a few darks, and again a few misses allows you to suggest that there is white hair coming down into the eye stripe, and some quite a way down, and some of them are longer, and so you need to allow for one or two of those just to suggest them. You can come in darker, and if you've got too many or they're in the wrong place, you can eradicate them. So don't be sort of too worried about getting it wrong. Taking some of this pencil mark out again to lose that. And hopefully we're still in picture view. We are. Yeah. Okay, just check that. I need some more drink. Okay, that's the last of the glug, so I've got to make it last now. I'm going to come in over that grey with some warm sepia, dark sepia. It really does warm the blacks up quite a bit. It's a great contrast colour. And you know, if you've got dark greys like Payne's grey and you've got dark browns like sepia, it really does invigorate the darks overall. And then if you want to come in with the pure black, of course you still got that. And now I'm going to come off with some darks here and just checking. There's a bit of brown that comes up in there, a bit of light tan, so I'm going to leave some of that because in favour, and allow some of these hairs to form up. And you get some darks coming down through the tans and the ambers of the fur generally. And once again, some of them are stray darks and others are literally shadow hairs, you know, or created shadows from layering of the multitude of hair that the cat's got. Now, I do need to come in and take down some of the orangey values. I'm going to come in with, if I can get it out of the box, this one is a, I wish they put it in, what do they call that? They call that one Nugget. Where do they think these names are from? 178 Nugget, believe it or not. Okay, so I'm just going to come in with a general layer of this Nugget or Nougat, depending on where you're from. And I'm going to look at that line of blue there and say that that's really where I want to take that shadow colour as far as, before I come back out and start suggesting that we've got lights again. And so I'm looking at the direction of this hair. Again, is coming up over that cheekbone. And so we've got shadow at this point, and then it will give way to sunlight or lit hair further on, like so. Okay, and take that down on what will become another stripe further down here when we get to it. We're a bit of way off of that yet, so I'm not too worried about that right now. So I'm going to look at that dark and I'm going to start putting that in, and I'm going to come back in with the Payne's grey. Just quickly, just bring that in just to give myself an idea where that runs from and to. I'm not too worried about the direction. I'm not going that way as such, but I am just really checking where I want that to go. And then it will start giving way into the light through here. So a few taps to give me an idea of what I've got to put in and where that's got to come. And I'm just going to put a few stray ones that are coming out positively into the darks, and they will get stronger and they will give way to warmer ones here, because don't forget, as I said just now, the black hair really isn't black hair. It is actually brown hair that is so dark. And you can look at many dogs and, you know, what appears to be black hair really is not black hair at all. So it's worth bearing that always in mind, that you just, when it hits the sun, you see how that black hair becomes a really deep burgundy brown, and it will have an effect. Okay, so moving forward, and just start building up this area on this eye stripe now. I'm going to take some of those up into the blues. Just one or two taps here and there, really, really random. And it's quite a narrow, dark passage of hair through here. Like so. I'm going to go over that with the sepia again. I'm going to take some of these down through as well. Some of these darks are really influencing the shadow colour, and this shadow colour is not where it wants to be just yet. We've got a long way to go to bring that in line of the colour we're looking for. I'm just suggesting some of these darks moving down towards that first big major stripe on the cheek. So I'm just looking and seeing where I need to put little taps of dark to start with. Okay. Some of these are coming down into the blue also. Some of these little taps, I need to sharpen this. No, I'm not going to sharpen it with the thing. I'm going to use a little bit of this just to take off the edge again, just to give me a nice point. And there's no need to go racing out if you want a bit of sandpaper for a pencil. You don't need to buy, I don't know how much they charge for these little pieces of wood with 2 or 3 pieces strapped to it. Just go and get yourself a little bit of very fine sandpaper. This is 600 grit, and it's a waterproof paper, so that's handy anyway. It doesn't really make a lot of odds, but then it just keeps going. You don't need to go out and spend good money for something of that nature. Just trying to keep the edge shape and nice and sharp without losing all the wood by constant sharpening, which is going to happen. Gives you a lovely point, but you don't have to go through your pencils really fast. Not the plan, not the idea. I'm going to come here and suggest just the start there of this big major cheek stripe there. I'm just putting in a few marks just to give me an indication of where that's going to go. And then I can come back in and work harder into these areas. And these want to be, it's got a little bit brown, so I'm going to come in and just punish this a little bit more through there. Just give that a little bit of a deeper go. There. Okay, that's not so bad. Tapping into some of these. Leaving these lights that are coming are stray hairs. I'm going to use those like so, and I'm going to I want to put a mid-brown in now. I think I'm going to actually make it quite a yellowish colour. This looks like an ochre of some sort. They call it green gold. So let's just come in and gently overlay that nice browny colour with a little bit of yellow, but we're going to go back in again. I'm just literally allowing this, not as hairs, just to influence the shape of this darkened part here. Just influence it, nothing more. Okay, and I've got a big pile of pencils here, I tell you. It's not good. I've got to sort all these back out. I never will get them back in their lovely setting and their lovely transition of colours in the box. I know I'm not going to do that. Right, and just now I am making suggestive hair marks by coming in, more definitely shaping these as they come through and create the shadow part as this comes down. And it actually does get quite shadowy down through this part too, because the whole of it is giving way in the light. Now this tiger, if you see the whole picture, has got shadows across its body, and I've seen people copy them into their paintings time and time again. Then when they photograph zoo animals, which this one is, this is one at Smarden, when they photograph these, they sort of, you get cast marks from the bars, and people copying them into their paintings because they don't know what they are, so they create this shadow. And you can just see in the photograph that you're looking at a crosshair right across the side of the nose, and that is literally where the bars are. So I'm looking at that. It's not where I'm painting the shadow now, but down here there is definitely an influence of that. So I've got to be aware of that. Now I'm coming in with a bit of a warm grey just to come in and deepen this nice colour and making it more void of intensity of light, and therefore putting it definitely into the shade. Okay, and I want to increase some of the darks now, so I'm using the black. I want to come back into some of these blues very, very softly. gently tease them out into this area so that we start creating little shadow marks between some of these hairs, which will suggest even more depth in the fur. So what you see is light is the hair that's now sitting on top, and the darks that I'm putting on last become the shadowy parts within the hair. And that's the idea. Little taps, nothing more. Just giving the suggestion that there is, and it gets a little bit warmer. I keep looking at it and I just want to pump in some more depth of this orange. So I'm going to come back in and gently tease some more strength of orange into some of these colors here. Now this is not an orange, I don't think. This is terracotta that I picked up. I don't go for the names, I go for what I think the value of the color is going to offer me. It does get cool down here, so I just want to use that just up in this area, bringing some of that through here and deepening some of these hairs up through the back here. Way too light right now. Definitely an influence of dark through there. And as it comes crashing around the side of these hairs here, there's a definite dark influence. And put a bit more depth into these. So then by making these, some of these hairs stronger in value, stronger oranges, what you're actually doing is making those that are left, the whiter, lighter ones that were there before, all of these ones will become the highlights. They will become, you remember I left those little bits of white hair or white paper in places. I said it didn't matter if they turned one color or another further on down the road, but the orange that I'm putting now is becoming darker and stronger, and therefore the lights that are left become the highlights to that part of the hair, and so you start building up the depth of fur. Okay, let's check that thing. Sue, looks amazing, thank you. That's cool. Let's just start to go on area of camera. Have I lost something? I don't know. What have I done, Derek? You start to on area of camera. No, I've lost that one, mate. You'll have to run that by me again. I'm just being a little bit dense. I do apologise. Thank you, Bonnie. That's really kind of you to say that. That's so sweet. Thank you so much. Right. Build, build, build. Strength and depth. To make hairs lighter or appear lighter, then put everything around them darker. And vice versa. If you want something dark, make everything around it very, very light. And that's really what I'm doing here. I'm going over both areas with this orange, but it's having very different ultimate effects on what you're seeing. And these will then come crashing down into this next cheek mark, which will start here next week when we carry on with this. And that's if any of you could be bothered to come back and watch it, and if you're staying awake long enough. Okay, but I quite like the way that that's working. I'm going to use some dark sepia to come back in. I'm just checking the time. We've gone past the 2 hours, so we're not going to do much more, guys, tonight. I'm just going to sort of try and bring this area of the cheek to heel and call it a night on this area, and then we'll come back next week and carry on. Or else you're going to be here all night and falling asleep on me, and that is not going to do me any good either. So if you've got any questions, ask away, and I do my best to answer. And of course, if you are watching this and you're not a patron and you fancy getting a bit more from me in terms not just from Colour Pencil but from my watercolors, oils, other tuition, my Facebook community, and the new live stream that we're going to be doing on a Friday for all the patrons. If you want to get involved with that, then all the details will be in under each and every one of my videos. Take a look at it, and by all means, if you want to get involved, you'll be so welcome. And on top of that, don't forget that every Friday there is a new video that I will put out, in the morning at some point. I'm just digressing. I'm just sort of plotting really where this cheek mark is going to come. And it sort of climbs back up here a little bit. So we're just playing around with the drawing more than anything else before we go headlong into battle with the colour. So this area here is just having one or two bits of dark shadows, little bits of hairs, creating more forms as it comes down into. Keep digressing. I keep starting talking about something and move on to some other subject. But then again, those who know me know what I do all the time. I keep doing that. Not a problem. It's just the way I am. I don't multitask. I never have. Alright. There are too many people out there that can multitask rings around me, so I don't bother trying. Alright, I'm going to bring some of these down through here that are suggestive. Some of these are really long hairs that come down into this next section of dark, while some of them are bluer, and as they go up here, there's a few darks more evident at this point. Just tapping away with the brush, just making those happen. Looking at the painting, looking at what you're seeing, and that's fine. Alright, just one or two marks down here, just suggesting. The less marks I put in, the more the sun seems to be punching on it. And I want to suggest the first few pale, just gentle little strokes of orange and what will become hairs. They're nothing serious at the moment. Some of them will be gone over with other colours. They're just allowing the light to start coming back in to this part of the cat's fur, and we can start building that light further. The same here, we've got all the darks to come down, and we will start putting in some of these little taps of orange in here just to start creating the sense of light. Same over here, we're going to put one or two very pale taps of colour, not too many. There's going to be a few ochres and a few pinks going in up here next week. So there, okay, well, my arms are getting a bit tired. We are 2 minutes, nearly 10 into this, so I think that maybe we will call it a day for the moment, and we will see where we go next week. And yeah, hopefully you'll join me again for doing a bit more on this, and hopefully bringing it to some successful conclusion, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, thank you very much, Sean, appreciate that. We've lost a few people, but I'm sure we're late, so that's not surprising. I know Luke had to go early, so that's fine. But thank you very much, everybody, for joining me tonight for this. It's the first colour pencil live stream I've done, I think. Yes, it is. And I would have had that house sparrow as a film for you next Friday, but I wrecked the footage, and so that's not going to happen. Cheers, Jim. Thanks ever much. I hope America is doing fine tonight, and that's fantastic. Thank you for joining us, mate, and hopefully you join it next week, and we will continue this and sort of take it on from where it is right now, of course, and see where we can go with it. But I'm enjoying it so far. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, it's not as quick as somebody pointed out as doing a watercolor, and it's not even as quick as doing an oil, and that's evident. But it's the thing about color pencil that I really enjoy is the fact it's so therapeutic. I can just lose myself. You know, if it wasn't for the fact that I was filming one yesterday, I just went on and creating. Loved it. It was so much fun, and I just, you know, you just keep going. Great results so far. Thanks, boy. I do remember another pencil drawing couple 3 months ago. Yes, that was actually pastel pencils, mate. I did the Kingfisher, I believe. Cheers, Colin. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Judy. Thanks for coming on board and seeing us tonight. That's very kind of you, and thanks for the support. thank you everybody for the support. It's fantastic. It beats sitting here talking to myself, which I can get locked up for. And I've been advised to be careful and make sure that there is at least one person on the other side of the stream so I can't get locked up. And so there you go. Bonnie, thank you very much if you're still there for joining us tonight. That's very sweet of you, and thank you for your kind comment. Glennis, thank you very much. See you next week, I hope. And everybody, I hope to see you next week. No problems, Derek. Take care, buddy. Oh, I meant to have called you. I'm so sorry. Derek, can I call you tomorrow morning, mate? Or you call me or something like that tomorrow morning? Ever so sorry. I didn't mean to let that go by. I just got so worked on doing stuff here and getting ready for the stream tonight that I completely forgot to call you back. My apologies, but maybe give me a call tomorrow when it's good for you and we make a plan about the fish. Thank you very much. Can confirm for trees that the live patron stream will be on YouTube as not via Facebook group. I'm going to try and figure out how to do the YouTube version of a private stream. I'm not sure how to do it yet. I'm going to talk to a few people and aim. I think it might be done that I have to have emails, possibly send them out to each and every one of you that are eligible to join that stream so that we don't get anybody just join the stream. There's no point in that. And hopefully then we can sort of get individual members of the Patreon only on that particular stream. So I'm looking into that. Hopefully we can get it going, and hopefully we'll have a stream this Friday at 7 o'clock, Teresa. So fingers crossed, but I will be working. It's one of my jobs tomorrow to do. Cheers, Keith. I take it you won't be taking out coloured pencils anytime soon. Well, at least you enjoyed it, and at least you're happy with your watercolour. That's the main thing, mate. All right, well, thank you everybody again. I am going to leave you all now to the rest of your evening, and we will carry this one on. We'll take it off of here, keep it safe for the week, and continue it next week, next Monday. So it'll be a part 2. I had my suspicions and thought it probably would be, but I just didn't want to put you all off watching part 1. I'm not stupid. Okay, Derek. Yeah, call you early afternoon. Yeah, that's absolutely fine, mate. I'm sorry again that I didn't call you earlier. I'll be off now. Take care. Cool. Thanks, Paul. Looking forward to the Patreon stream. See you Friday. Good night. I hope so. Just watch the... just watch our Facebook. No, because you can't go on there. Just what I put a note out on the Patreon, Teresa, if we are running on Friday. I'm going to try. I don't want to promise it and disappoint you. So just look on there. I'll put a post on the Patreon to all patrons that are eligible so that you can get involved with that. You can run a YouTube stream unlisted and send out a link via email. Yeah, that means to say I need everyone's email. I didn't know if there was an easier way of doing it, Ben, but maybe at some point in the next couple of days we can have a chat about that. If you get some free time, that'd be fantastic. Wendy, you can do it via the messenger service on Patreon, like you did for the question you sent out the other day. Okay, Wendy, we need to talk about that option too. I just need to make it the easiest possible way for all my patrons to log in and get involved with it without too many problems. I favour YouTube because I know the YouTube platform, and I know that Facebook is there, and I know others that use it, but like Teresa, she's having difficulty watching it on Facebook. So I would rather use YouTube because I know it's more open for people to get involved with. All right, people, that's it. We're now 1:15. I will give me a call sometime. Yeah, anytime you mate. I'm just trying to think that possibly tomorrow afternoon. I know I've got to talk to Derek sometime in the afternoon tomorrow, but yeah, that would be fantastic if you don't mind, just to see if there's a way around this to make it easy. All right, people, I'm gonna let you all say good night to each other, and I bid you farewell to have a great week, and cheers, Sean. I'm so jealous of you down in Cornwall, mate. But I suppose it's also very crowded right now as well, so it's probably not the best place to be. So yeah, anyway, enough of me rambling. I've had fun, and I have enjoyed making this eye happen and come to life, and hopefully we will get the rest of it coming to life next week and see where we go with that. All right, peeps, take care. All the best. Bye bye.